So anyway, we went there. It was around dusk. Basically, he says he wanted to go for coffee somewhere. The waitress came with some placemats, and she said, hold on to these. They keep coming up. A bunch of placemats spread along the table. For the first time, a phrase I never heard of before called drop-offs. And it was very strange. Stuff. So that's what it reminded me of. They were very deep into whatever they were talking about. It sounded very morbid to me, just like it didn't make any sense. I've never heard of anything like that. He said something like, "I killed the children." This is Alpena Witness. I've also posted as Reasoning. I was asked by Helen's staff if I wanted to include discussion here on the archives, and I agreed to it. To start off with, when the Oakland County child killer murders were taking place in 1976 and 77, I was in Alpena. I was in Alpena High. I was aware of some child killings in the Detroit suburbs, but I really didn't remember any detail of any sort. I guess I was at the age of 17, 18. I really didn't follow the newspapers or the news back at that time, so didn't really recognize anything from that. My dad passed away I was at a very early age in my young 20s. My mom went on for quite a few years, and I left Alpena in the early 80s, and I've been living in a Detroit suburb since then. But we used to go up there every Christmas. The day after Christmas, we drove up to Alpena, and my young children at that time, we would visit, and we did that every single year, the day after Christmas. And when my mom passed away in the late 80s, we didn't go up there anymore, and then we decided to go up there one more time in the early 90s, and the reason why was it was a Christmas gift for my kids. Basically, they wanted to play in the pool and visit the other grandma, and so we decided to go up there, and it was part of the Christmas gift. And so we went up there to the Holiday Inn, drove up there that day. I got settled there, and my kids were playing in the pool. And then I left, pick up to see a friend, an old friend, a neighborhood friend of mine. Basically, he says he wanted to go for coffee somewhere, and I had to drive, and he didn't care where, just wanted coffee. And he was he's really kind of out of it. I think he was up all night. My understanding was that he was going through a lot of things in his life at the time. So anyway, what I'm getting at is going up there that last time without my mom alive anymore, it bothered me, and it was weird in a lot of ways. The drive up there, the realizing that Christmas is not the same anymore, and it just felt different. And so for that reason alone, I remember that day very, very well. A lot of people question if I have photographic memory. I do not, but I do have very, very good memory, and a lot of times I surprise people on details I remember from many, many years ago. But my point is that before I went to the big boy, what I'm getting at is that day I would remember very, very well before even entering the Twilight Zone when I went to the big boy. But anyway, my friend wanted coffee, so I took him to the big boy. I remember the day that big boy was built in the early 70s. I did not live too far from there. Let's just say it's my old neighborhood. And in fact, my wife was a cook there, and in the late 70s, I used to go there and sit and watch her cook when I had some time for lunch. I used to sit there on the stools, and if I sit at the very left stool, I could actually see her cooking in the kitchen there. So the big boy was a big part of my life in a lot of ways. And so anyway, we went there. It was around dusk, and we were sitting in the smoking section, and don't ask me why, but the smoking section back in those days was to the right. I believe it might have something to do with the ventilation being near the kitchen. They had a fan or something, but whatever the case, that was the smoking section. We sat down. The waitress came with some placemats, and she said, hold on to these. They keep coming up missing. And she kind of turned her head to the people that were in front of me, and I could see right there that they had a whole bunch of placemats spread along the table. I, at that time, didn't know what all it was about, but I just know they had a bunch of placemats turned around with writing on it. And my first impression was they were studying something, and it reminds me of the college days where I used to actually work with a friend on a study for a test, and we used to actually use the placemats to make extra notes and stuff. So that's what it reminded me of. They were very deep into whatever they were talking about, and as the waitress took our order and walked away, I could hear him talking about murders, newspapers, and for the first time a phrase I never heard of before called drop-offs. And it was very strange, first off, for Alpena to be an Alpena and hearing this kind of talk. No idea what they were talking about exactly, but there were people leaving around that time, and there was, the chatter, because behind me was, to the right was a coat rack, and there were people coming up to pay for their bills for their food. It was near the counter. The counter was behind me, and the hostess was behind me, right behind me, actually. So I couldn't hear everything, but above the chatter, he said something like, "I killed the children," rather loud, angry-like. And like I said, it was above the chatter, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, did I hear that right? So around that time, all of a sudden, the booth in front of me, all my attention went to that. It was all weird. Walk into a twilight zone, and it got more like that. Another thing he said kind of early on was something about giving the children a bath before he killed them, and it sounded very morbid to me. Just like it didn't make any sense. I've never heard of anything like that. Around that time, the woman, which her face was facing me, and the man's back could only see the back of his head. But for a minute, she looked up and looked at me, and she gave me the weirdest look. It was like she saw a ghost or something.